Of all the animated movie series out there, Kung Fu Panda has to be one of my favorites. The series as a whole is good at balancing the humor with serious moments that never seem to step on each other's toes. Each movie presents its themes and arguments clearly, without shoving it too much in your face. It's respectful to the culture that it tries to represent, and so much so that many Chinese people are jealous that an American movie did better at showing off their own culture than most Chinese movies, and it was generally loved in that country. If you want to know more about that subject, I would recommend Chiren J. Zhao's video on the subject. Their video will be linked down in the description, and it is very in-depth. Highly recommend checking out their channel as a whole, too. The animation is breathtaking, the character design is flawless, and overall the series exemplifies the argument that there are certain stories that can only be told through animation. My favorite movie in the series is the second, Kung Fu Panda 2. Kung Fu Panda 2 has an amazing story, fantastic fight scenes, and probably my favorite villain in all of animation. So when I found out that Nando V Movies was doing a follow-up to One Marvelous Scene and One Excellent Scene called One Villainous Scene, I knew I had to make this video, even if it is super late due to a lot of medical issues on my end. I hope this video is still well received regardless. Now, with that introduction out of the way, let's dive in. Of course, there will be heavy spoilers for the entirety of Kung Fu Panda 2, and some other spoilers for the other two Kung Fu Panda movies, but not as much as Kung Fu Panda 2. Now, let's dive in, guys, gals, non-binary pals. No villain is complete without a compelling motive. The movie starts right off the bat, providing us with Shen's motives and backstory, portrayed in this absolutely beautiful Chinese paper puppet style. We learn that Shen was the prince of a powerful city known for its fireworks. However, where others saw beauty, Shen saw potential for destruction. Distressed by this dark path their son had started, his parents asked a soothsayer to tell them what to do. She warned that if Shen continued down this dark path, that he would be defeated by a warrior of black and white, aka a panda, as everyone quickly assumes. Shen overheard this, and after weighing his options carefully, he decided to readjust his course and walk down a path of righteousness. Oh, this is One Villainous Scene. Of course he kills all the pandas! Terrified by their son's actions, Shen's parents banished him from the city, never to return. I wanted to touch on this prologue because it sets up the audience's expectations for Shen perfectly. His past, his motivations, his goals, even the way he goes about solving problems, all trace back to this opening scene. This is where we're going to be getting into the real meat of this analysis. The Kung Fu Panda trilogy does a really good job with its villains in setting up tension between them and our main character Po through foiling. And no, I'm not talking about wrapping them up in tinfoil. I'm talking about the literary foil. A quick definition for those who are unaware: character foils are when you have two characters who act as opposites to each other in order to emphasize how different they are, and also to kind of show off each character's flaws as well as the things that they do right. Po is clumsy and willing to make mistakes, while Shen is an elegant perfectionist. Shen is prideful and aware of his royal origins, while Po is humble and unknowing of his own tragic origins. Po fights spontaneously, always using his surroundings to his advantage, while Shen tends to go into a fight with a plan, and when that plan doesn't work, he retreats. He also tends to not pay as much attention to his surroundings as Po, but more on that little note later. Throughout the movie, every interaction between Shen and Po further hammers home how exact opposites they are. Even their individual scenes parallel each other in their showing of how opposite they are to each other. Whether it's the scene with Po being comforted by Tigress or Shen being confronted by the soothsayer, all of their scenes show off just how opposite these characters are. But throughout the movie, there is one thing that they both do have in common: their search for inner peace. Inner peace is established pretty early on to be important to the story of this movie by Master Shifu. I'm not going to go too much into depth in this video, but do expect more in-depth discussion on that topic when I do full analyses of all 3 Kung Fu Panda movies. But for now, let's get back to the one villainous scene, shall we? Po wants to find the truth. He's searching for answers from a past he can't remember, while Shen already knows the answers to his past, and he chooses to lash out against all of China out of anger and desire for revenge. Most of Shen's interactions with Po are all very intense and important moments within the plot. The first one being when Po and the Furious Five are captured and brought to see Shen and his weapon in person. In this meeting, Shen has all the power, right? I mean, he has the only 6 people in all of China who can stand a chance of beating him, and they are brought to him in chains, with his most powerful weapon pointed right at them point blank. But as the soothsayer says before this meeting, Shen is terrified, while Po isn't. Po is just casually chatting away and making jokes the whole time, while Shen is jittery and his perfectionism is getting the best of him. The whole time he's planned out this entire script that he wants to say, and the moment things start to deviate from that script, he doesn't know what to do. And when a fight inevitably does break out, Shen loses. He retreats. And side note, I love how they used an actual peacock cry as Shen retreats. Just, mwah, chef's kiss. And the way he glides like an actual peacock. Okay, I just need to rant about this, because peacocks are some of my favorite birds. I love birds. And anytime I see a character in fiction, especially in animation, that has a peacock motif, and they don't flare up their feathers when they're attacking or when they're angry, it just gets to me. And Shen does that. This movie, again, Kung Fu Panda is really good at using the form of animation to exemplify their characters' movements, their fighting styles, their personalities. And Shen is really the perfect embodiment of that ideal with animation, especially when using anthropomorphized animals. Shen is really the bar that all animators should be trying to reach when they are working with anthropomorphized characters. But, back on track. Fast forward to the next fight, we see a power shift. Shen's the one with all the power, while Po is on the defensive. See, at this point, Po knows that Shen has something to do with his birth parents, but he doesn't know what. The trauma has locked his memories away, but every time he sees Shen, he gets those intrusive flashbacks that those of us with PTSD are all too familiar with. The fight is kind of hard to watch. Po is barely able to hold his own in the fight right now because he doesn't see Shen as his enemy. He sees Shen as the answer to all of his questions. Shen is fighting to kill Po, and Po is just trying to talk, and in the end, Po loses that fight because he's not actually fighting. He's just desperately crawling for answers. He's bargaining the whole time, and yes, I know that technically he's fighting back because he's defending himself, but I'm talking more on the subtext here. He's just letting Shen lash out at him over and over and over again. And this sets us up for the one villainous scene that I've selected for this video.
Keep firing! Keep firing!
After a very hectic and turbulent battle on the river as Shen's armada is setting out to conquer China, all what's left after the chaos slowly pours out into the bay. The Furious Five and Poe's other allies are drifting on planks and other flotsam, and Poe is the only one with the will and strength to get up and keep fighting. Tattered and burned and bruised and bleeding, Poe finds his footing on a single rock that pokes its head above the surface. One panda, standing against a small fleet of heavily armed naval ships. Shen believes that he's won. He tells his wolves to fire a single shot to finish the panda off. This is when Poe and Shen's arcs reach their climax. A big theme throughout the entirety of this film is trauma and how inner peace can only be achieved by accepting and working through your trauma. Using the raindrop technique he learned from Master Shifu, Poe manages to deflect a live cannonball away from him with his bare paws. Panda bear paws, I guess. Everyone is amazed by this, especially Shen, who orders his ships to keep firing. Cannonballs start flying at Poe, and he deflects all of them. And once he gets the hang of it, he starts picking off Shen's ships one by one, all while Shen blindly keeps shouting the command to keep firing, until eventually the last cannonball fired is sent flying right back at the cannon it came from. When the smoke settles, Poe is standing over Shen, who asks Poe,
How did you do it?
You know, you just keep your elbows up and keep the shoulders loose.
Not that. How did you find peace? I took away your parents. Everything. I scarred you for life.
At this point, it's clear what really makes these two foils. Poe is willing to move on from his trauma, while Shen is consumed and controlled by his. In a last-ditch attempt to avoid the prophecy, he attacks Poe, the whole while not realizing that he's cutting load-bearing ropes until he looks up and is met with his own creation falling down on him. Villains being destroyed by the very evil they create is one of my favorite villain tropes. And this is one of the best examples I can think of in any media because, in the end, Shen was defeated by a warrior of black and white. But it wasn't Poe. Shen is a white peacock, and I've been praising his design throughout this whole video. And it should be noted that the two accent colors are red and black. The warrior of black and white that was destined to defeat Shen was never Poe. It was always himself, destroyed by his own malice and hatred and stubbornness. Hey y'all, thank you for watching. I apologize for this video being super late to the party. It was originally supposed to come out in December before my hip surgery, but there was just so much going on between preparing for the surgery and other health problems I was dealing with, and the fact that this is really the first video I've ever made like this about something that wasn't a video game. So it was a bit of a learning curve, and I know this video probably isn't the best because it was kind of rushed because I knew how late I was, but I do plan on making more videos like this and even a full series on Kung Fu Panda movies in the future. So if you like this video, stick around, and if this video miraculously does get accepted into the One Villainous Scenes official playlist, then I'm very thankful for that. But until next time, guys, gals, non-binary pals, see ya.